tutorial, you'll be needing your basic body front, bust point, under bust and waistline, okay? Side bust that and your waist that. And having done that, we'll go ahead to draw in our bust circumference. I have quite a number of videos with this bust circumference tutorial and how to do it, but I'll go through it again. It's just the distance between your bust point to your under bust, and you take that distance from the bust point all the way around. Mine is 2.5 and I'm marking 2.5 all the way around, just as you've seen. And having done that, now we'll go ahead to contour the neckline, because this body is actually an off shoulder, but not a deep off shoulder, because we don't want to be showing any unnecessary cleavage. So we are going to be contouring the neckline, and by doing that, I've gone ahead to mark the midpoint of my neckline, and I'm going to be connecting it to the bust point. Also, to connect this very part of the shoulder, to contour this part of the shoulder, I'll be marking 1/2 inch from the tip of my shoulder, and I'll be connecting that line to my bust point. And I haven't done this now. I'll go ahead from that bust circumference circle line. I'll be marking 0.25 inches on the right side of those two lines that I've made. And I haven't done that, I'll be connecting with my ruler to the bust point and to the tip of the neckline, like so. I'll also be connecting to the bust point and the tip of the shoulder line, like so. So I haven't done this now. We're going to have to contour this very part of this bodies. I'll be going in 2.5 inches from my basic neckline. So I haven't done that now. I want to get that very part of that corset, you know, that part of that corset look. So I marked 1.5, well, I marked 1 inch, but I had to reduce it because taking a straight line to where the circle fits in, it's smaller than 1.5, than 1 inch, sorry, as you can see me doing now. So I had to use this very particular one. So after doing that, you'll be going in with your sleeve. As you can see, I've labeled my sleeve, front and back, and also the center sleeve. So you want to connect the center to the tip of the shoulder like so, which has the front part. So I'll go ahead to tape that down using my cello tape. And after doing that, okay, we also have to, I have to tape this down just so it doesn't go, when I'm cutting, I don't cut off some part of it. So we also have to measure how deep you want your off shoulder to be. Like I said, we don't want to show any cleavage, so I will be removing just 1 inch from the sleeve, just 1 inch from the cap sleeve, yeah, from that very point, 1 inch. I have other videos in my channel also where I've shown how to do your off shoulder with pattern drafting, and you get it fit without having to touch or adjust any part of it. So this is just it. I marked 1 inch and 1.5 inch, and whichever one is what I'll be using, 1 inch or 1.5 inch. So I'll be connecting this line like so to meet that 1 inch. I actually had to use the 1 inch. So I'll be connecting this line like so to meet the 1 inch. I've connected it like so to meet the 1 inch. So coming down to determine the length of my sleeve or cape, or I don't know, cape, sleeve, whatever, I used 5.5 inches. From that very 1 inch line, 5.5 inches. And I'll be connecting this to the part where I want it to stop, like so. I have to go in with my marker. I actually want to make this very part a V neck. I want the V to be very obvious. So I have to go with my marker to redraw the neckline. Okay. I want the V to be very obvious. So I have to go with my marker to redraw the neckline. And also for this very part, I had to extend it more to 7 inches. Okay, I had to extend it more to 7 inches. And I'll be marking out that same measurement of the corset part. Also, I'll be marking it down to get a straight line that is going to meet up like so. Just so I'm very sure where I'm going to connect that 7 inches length of sleeve. So I haven't done that now. I want to carve out this particular sleeve this center sleeve. I don't want it to be straight. I want it to have a curved look, a curved shape kind of. So that is actually what I'm doing now. So having done this, I also go ahead to use my ruler to connect from this point to the 7 inches point of the sleeve, like so. So I had to use a longer ruler just so I don't make mistakes, and for it to just go one, just so the line is straight at once and I don't have to join with broken lines. I'll go ahead to fill up that very tiny space, okay? I'm going to fill up this very tiny space. After I've made it very visible with my smaller ruler, I'll go ahead to fill up this very tiny space. Yes, just like so. Actually, it's a very tiny space, so I have to reduce the paper. And I'll be filling this up and taping it down with my sellotape. Just so I don't have any broken line and I'm sure everything is intact, is in order. So I haven't done this now. I'll be tracing out the whole of the cape, kind of, yes. Let's just call it a cape. I'll be tracing out the whole of that cape. So I'll go ahead to trace out the whole of this cape like so. Everything else, including the sleeve. So I'm gonna have to trace it out, including the darts. And this is what it looks like. You have to trace exactly what you're seeing. So I'll be removing that sleeve and I'll set it aside because we'll be needing it for the back bodies. I'll be removing the cape and the sleeve and I'll set it aside. So I have to work on this pattern now and taking off that very off shoulder part. Wouldn't be needing this again. Then I'll go ahead to remove my darts so that I can be able to sew and let this form that corset that I want to achieve in this very particular tutorial. So I'm going ahead now to open up all the contour lines, and I'll be marking just as we've always been doing in this video in my tutorials, any part you want from your armhole just to create the armhole princess seam, okay? Then I'll go ahead to close up all these contour darts, opening them at my side bust dart like so. And for the princess seam line, I'll go ahead to open up that line I marked from my armhole, and I'll be closing up my side bust dart now and opening it at that very point of my armhole like so. And I'm using my tape to hold this in place. So I haven't done that now. I'll go ahead to mark very clearly that line, the very part where I'm cutting out that looks like some kind of a corset, kind of. I'll be contouring my underbust just so I get that very defined feminine look that fits at the underbust. And I'll be marking 0.8 inches on both sides of my underbust. Then I'll be connecting like so. If you've been following my tutorials also, this should be well explained to you by now because I do this in most of my tutorials. So I haven't done that. We'll be going in with our scissors to cut off. So I'll be going ahead to cut off from this very part first, just so I get that shape of the corset and like so. Is this really a corset? I don't really, just tell me what you think about this design in the comment section. Just tell me whatever you think about this design. I don't know, it's probably the corset variation. I think it's a corset variation. So we're going to be taping this down. I did this exact thing in my bra tutorial. If you haven't seen that, go to my channel. You see my bra tutorial, then you want to watch it because I did this very exact thing there also. I'll be eliminating the darts here too. I just had to tape it down because the paper, and I don't want to separate it yet. So that was why I had to take it down. So I'm going to be separating it now. And I'll be smoothing out this place just so we don't have any pointed edge. And I'll be using my scissors to remove that part that I've smoothened out, okay? So I'm gonna have to label 1, 2, 3, just so it's easier for me. You want to also label when necessary. Then moving over to the back now. This is my basic back bodice, and from the very tip of my neckline, sorry, from the mid of my shoulder, I had to mark 3 inches downwards, and I'll be marking that 3 inches downwards straight with my ruler. And from that point, I'll be marking my nipple to nipple measurement, and I'll be connecting it to the actual one of the original dart. And from there, we'll be creating our dart up onto that 3 inches mark line, like so. And I'll be going in with my sleeve. I'll be going in with my sleeve, just same thing we did to the front. Taping it down, and I haven't done that. We'll go ahead to mark just the exact measurements we marked. Everything we did to the front, that is what we'll be doing to the back sleeve, okay? Because we don't want one to be different from the other. We want them to be the same. We're using the same 1 inch at the center of the sleeve, and coming down from that 1 inch point also, we'll be using 7 inches, just the exact thing. And for the depth of my back neckline, I used 4 inches, and I'll be connecting it like so, also like a V. I'll also be connecting this now. I went down from that 0.5, from that 4 inches that I used as my neckline. I went down by 3 inches, but I had to use 2.5 inches because I don't want I don't want the cape where I'm going to be attaching the cape to be very much wide. And I'll be using my ruler to connect it like so. So I'll be doing the same curved line at the center sleeve, and I'll be going in with my marker to make this very much visible. This very 2.5-inch distance at my center back is optional. You can use anything you want. It's actually optional, so you can use anything you want. And I'll be tracing out my back cape. So for the sake of that back cape now, for the sake of my back cape, I'll only be tracing from this part where I dotted, where I marked an asterisk. As you can see, this is just the part where I traced. I didn't trace up to the center back. Okay, if you like, you can trace up to the center back, but I didn't trace up to the center back. For the sake of this area, we're not going to trace up to center back. So I'm going ahead to work on the front cape or bow, or whatever. So I'm going to be marking my guidelines. I want to slash and spread it. So I'm going to be marking my guidelines, okay? So I haven't marked my guidelines. I'll go ahead to close up all these dots. This part is quite complicating, but if you watch closely and concentrate, you're definitely going to get it, okay? I'm going ahead to close up my dots. I'm closing up these dots because I don't want that cape to, like, I don't want it to be falling off, I don't want it to be off shape. If there's anything like that, I want to close up the dart just so it also has the shape. Even if it's going to be like a gather, it's also going to have that shape, okay? Like the fitting, yeah. So I'll be closing up the dart. When I close it up, I'll go ahead to slash and spread these very particular bodies, this very particular cape or bow. Yeah. So I'm going ahead to close up all the darts, and I'll be cutting according to my guideline or somewhere close to it, just so I slash and spread this pattern for added fullness. So you don't want to spread it so much because we don't want a very voluminous gather. So you're not going to spread it much, just a little spread, just a little spread. You're not spreading it much, just a little. Just so it's not bulky. Just spread a little so it doesn't get too bulky. So I'm going ahead to mark according to the pattern that I've spreaded. Okay. I'm drawing according to the pattern that I've spreaded, just so I know where I'm going to cut. So I'm going ahead now to cut everything out. And after cutting it, this is going to be my front, bow, cape, sleeve, whichever one is easier for you to understand. So I'm going to have to cut out every of those patterns in the fabric. Over to the sewing, you want to sew according to the notches that you marked. Actually, this is my bust point notch, and I'm going to be sewing down all the way to the under bust. And from the bust point also, I'm going to be sewing all the way to the armhole. And this is what this looks like. Okay, so I think I'll be running an outward stitch on this very particular part. So I'm going to be running an outward stitch, top stitching rather. I'm going to be top stitching it on both sides of this cup. You want to be laying this flat so that you don't, it doesn't look rough when you're done sewing. As you're sewing, you want to be opening it up and be laying it flat. So heading over to the sleeve, I'll be taking the back cape and the front cape, okay? I'll be joining that part of the curved sleeve together, and I'll be sewing it down like so. So when I'm done sewing, this is what you should be having, and this is what the other corset part looks like. So I've gone ahead to attach a lining to my sleeve part, okay? For the front and back, I've gone ahead to turn it neatly with a lining. I'll run a loose stitch on this part where I'm going to be gathering. So I'm going to be gathering it after I've run the loose stitch on it. I'm going to be gathering it. This is the part where it's going to fit into the cup of the corset part, okay, for the front. So I'm going to be gathering it like so. Same thing will be done to the other side, and you want to fix it on your bustier, on your cup like so. You're going to be fixing on the part where you notched. We're going to be fixing on the part where we notched to the very part where we also notched it for it to stop. So it's very necessary that you notch on your pattern and also your fabric, just so you know where you want your own gathers to stop. And this is what we are having when we're done sewing. Now we're going to be attaching this to our main bodies, okay? I'm opening up that notch now and aligning it with the notch of the bodies. We are going to be sewing from the tip, making sure that that notch is in line, and we're sewing down. I have to restitch it because some thread were showing at that part and it's not going to be neat, so I had to cover it up. So we're going to do the same thing to the other side, okay? And I haven't done that. This is what we are having at this very particular part. So I'll go ahead to iron this out. And for the back, that very part of the back where the armhole is, we are going to be shaping it to the front bodies like you do to your normal shaping, yeah, to your normal dress shaping or top shaping, to get the fitting or the size. Yeah, is that very part, that part of the armhole. So you're going to be shaping it down. Consider the amount of allowance that you left while cutting. So having done this now, we're going to be taking that part of the back cape. So we're going to be running a loose stitch on it and gathering it also on the notch we made like so. So having done that, I'm gonna head to stitch up that back, and this is what this bodice looks like on the inside, the front, and also the back of it. I attached a strap to it, okay, and this is the final look of it, including the zipper. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next tutorial. Bye.